Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to, cut through the noise and get straight to the heart of what's really going on. Today we're diving into something that honestly affects millions across India every single day. It's this constant, sometimes really intense debate about stray dogs. If you've ever walked down a street, pretty much anywhere in India, you know the scene. Dogs are just part of the landscape, woven into community life. And there's often this deep emotional connection people feel. But alongside that, there's this growing and very real worry about public safety.
hmm It's a tough one.
So for this deep dive, we've been immersing ourselves in a pretty significant development coming out of Rajasthan. We've really dug into the policy papers, looked at community reactions, the whole legal side of things. It's a fascinating look at this huge challenge balancing human well-being and animal welfare. It's a story that, frankly, demands our attention.
Absolutely. And our mission today really is to unpack how Rajasthan is trying to walk that line. Public safety on one side, animal welfare on the other. It's a really complex tightrope walk. We'll explore what makes their approach stand out and, crucially, what lessons it might hold for the rest of India. And maybe even beyond, right? Because other places are grappling with similar things.
Definitely. And just to set the scene timeline-wise, these specific guidelines we're discussing, they were issued August 27, 2025 by Rajasthan's Department of Autonomous Governance. And this followed a Supreme Court directive that, well, it really shook things up nationally. So, okay, let's start by unpacking the sheer scale of this issue first. Yeah, we really need to get the background here because it's unique, this coexistence. For so many people, these aren't just strays. They're neighborhood animals fed by shopkeepers. You see them sleeping outside shops, almost like, guardians. And there's this cultural layer, too, links to deities like Bhairava. It runs deep. But here's the thing. It's not just a quaint cultural detail. This coexistence, as heartwarming as it can be, has some really serious public health implications.
And that's where the stark reality bites, so
Right.
to speak. What's really sobering is just the scale of it in India. We count for, I think, a staggering 36% of global rabies deaths. That's around 20,000 people dying every year. And the
Yeah.
main way this happens, dog bites. In 2024 alone, nationally, over 3.7 million dog bite cases were recorded. These aren't just numbers on a page. This is a crisis. It hits families, communities. It's deeply personal.
Oh, absolutely. And we've seen some just heart-wrenching examples lately. I think of 6-year-old Chavi Sharma in Delhi, July 2025, died from rabies after a stray dog attack. It's just tragic.
Right.
Or Burjesh Solanki, a 22-year-old kabaddi player in UP. He died from rabies too back in June 2025. These aren't statistics, the people. It just hammers home the human cost.
And connecting that to the wider picture,
Yeah.
you can see why there's such urgency across the country.
Yeah.
Rajasthan itself has seen a big jump in dog bites. It went from about 88,000 in 2022
Wow.
to over 140,000 in 2024. And just in January 2025, over 15,000 cases
In 1 month.
in 1 month.
Mm.
So the pressure on authorities, it's immense. They have to find solutions that work and are, humane.
And this rising crisis, it really got the attention of the Supreme Court. They stepped in, taking what's called sua motu cognizance, basically, starting the case themselves, especially after Chavi Sharma's death. This led to an initial order, August 11th. And it was, well, pretty controversial. It told authorities in Delhi and the surrounding areas, Noida, Ghaziabad, Gurugram, Faridabad, to round up all stray dogs within 8 weeks. And initially, it even stopped them releasing sterilized dogs back.
Right, and you can imagine the reaction. Immediate backlash.
Yeah.
Especially from animal welfare groups. They basically said, look, this is inhumane, yes, but it's also just completely impractical.
Right.
Where would they put them all?
Exactly. The Delhi alone, estimates suggest maybe 1 million strays. There's just nowhere near enough shelter space. So it raises that big question, how do you actually implement something like that on the ground? Good question. And it seems the Supreme Court heard those concerns because just a few days later, August 22nd, they revised their stance. The updated order said, okay, vaccinated and sterilized dogs can go back to their areas, unless, of course, they're aggressive or confirmed rabid. Those still needed to be contained. And then, crucially, the court called for a national policy, a unified approach for the whole country.
But here's what's really interesting. Rajasthan didn't wait for that national call. The state was already moving. Their own high court, Justices Kuldeep Mathur and Rabi Charania, had issued a directive back on July 31st. And that directive specifically stressed minimal physical harm to animals, even while telling municipalities to clear strays from the roads. So Rajasthan was kind of already out front trying to find that balance before the Supreme Court even called for the national policy. A real trailblazer in that sense.
So, okay, Rajasthan's moving ahead. What did they actually do? What does this plan look like on the ground? Secretary Ravi Jain described the guidelines as Comprehensive orders balancing public safety and animal welfare. And looking at them, they do seem like a really detailed blueprint trying to bring some structure to this very messy situation.
They really are quite detailed. It's built around 5 core pillars, basically. First up, structured feeding zones. And this is genuinely innovative, I think. The idea is to set up designated feeding spots in every municipal ward, every locality.
Instead of random feeding everywhere.
Exactly. To curb that random street feeding, which can cause fights between dogs and, frankly, more risk to people. Urban bodies, local councils, they'll work with RWAs, so the resident welfare associations and animal welfare groups, make sure there's food and water consistently. And get this, even dogs suspected of rabies will be fed there.
Why is that?
So they can be monitored systematically. It allows for health tracking. You see, the insight here is profound. You can't just ban a deep-seated cultural habit. You have to channel it, turn something that could be a problem into a way to manage and monitor. That's smart.
Okay, that makes sense. What's pillar 2?
Second is strict adherence to the ABC rules, the animal birth control rules from 2023. These rules are all about humane population control.
Right, the sterilization and vaccination part.
Precisely. Only trained teams, using nets or catching by hand. No pups under 6 months sterilized. And then after the procedure, the dogs get tagged, and this is crucial, released back to their original spots.
Why release them back? Some people might argue against that.
Well, it maintains territorial stability. If you remove them all, new unvaccinated dogs just move in. It's called the vacuum effect. Releasing them back helps keep a stable, hopefully healthier population in place.
Got it. Pillar 3.
Transparency and accountability. This is huge for building trust, right? So requirements for CCTV and operating theaters in the ABC centers.
So people can see what's happening.
Exactly. Every step, capture, sterilization, vaccination, release, has to be meticulously documented. Feeding records, any deaths, medical care, all of it. And there'll be monitoring committees with NGO members on them overseeing the whole thing. Keep everyone honest.
Okay, that sounds robust. What about the money? That's always a factor.
Pillar 4, the financial framework. They've actually allocated specific budgets. The Animal Welfare Board of India sets the costs about €200 per dog for capture, then $1,450 for the sterilization, food, post-op care. Having that financial clarity is meant to ensure municipalities actually have the resources to do this properly. It's practical.
Makes sense. And the last pillar.
Finally, and importantly, public safety measures. Because while it's humane, resident safety is still paramount. So dogs that show genuinely aggressive behavior or are confirmed rabid, they are not released back.
Okay, so what happens to them?
They're housed in separate, secure facilities. This protects people, especially kids and the elderly who are most vulnerable, but still handles the animals humanely.
Right. So those are the 5 pillars. Why is this Rajasthan strategy getting so much attention? What makes it stand out? Because unlike that initial Supreme Court idea, which seemed almost impossible logistically,
These are numbers, yeah.
Rajasthan's approach seems to use existing rules but adds these practical twists, like the feeding zones. They're not trying to just make the dogs disappear overnight.
Exactly. I think the pragmatism is key.
Yeah.
Focusing on sustainable control sterilization, vaccination. And it's science-backed, releasing treated dogs back. It avoids that vacuum effect we talked about.
Right, where new, possibly unvaccinated dogs just flood in.
Precisely. So it aims for a more stable, healthier dog population over time. Hopefully less disease, less aggression.
And it tackles that cultural point really cleverly, doesn't it? Feeding strays is just what people do in many parts of India. Instead of banning it, which would cause friction, they channel it. The feeding zones manage it.
Yeah, it reduces conflict. It's trying to make the whole human-animal interaction less fraught, more manageable, more respectful on both sides.
Has it been well received? What are people saying?
Generally, yes. Quite positively. Alok Parnasan Gupta from Humane World for Animals India called it, I think, balanced, structured, and compassionate, which is high praise. But she also raised a really important point of caution.
Which was?
The need for clear criteria for what constitutes an aggressive dog.
To prevent misuse. So dogs aren't just labeled aggressive unfairly.
Exactly. To avoid subjective decisions or people using it as an excuse to remove dogs they just don't like, it needs clear definitions and careful implementation.
Okay, so it sounds good on paper, but even the best plans hit bumps. What are the challenges here? Because the scale is just huge. You mentioned the numbers earlier. Rajasthan's official 2019 count was nearly 290,000 strays.
2.89 lakh, yeah. and likely an underestimate now.
Right. And in the first half of 2025, they only vaccinated about 8,100 and sterilized about 8,600.
It's a drop in the ocean, relatively speaking.
It really shows this is a massive long-haul effort, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that pace is a real worry. Experts like Dr. M.K. Prathip Kumar stress that rabies shots aren't a one-off. They need to be regular to work properly,
So ongoing effort, ongoing cost.
which means serious investment is needed. More vets, more ABC centers, and making sure those feeding zones are actually working, well managed, properly funded, not just lines on a map.
And we're already hearing some pushback on the ground, aren't we? Even about similar ideas like feeding points in Delhi. Some RWAs called them impractical. Worries about dogfights breaking out at these spots, or just the strain on municipal workers and budget.
Real world friction, yeah.
Plus, that fuzzy definition of aggressive keeps coming up. Senior advocate Kapil Sibal voiced that concern too, fearing it could lead to arbitrary roundups.
It really highlights that tightrope walk again. You've got such different perspectives. You hear from, say, Ramesh Kumar, a street vendor in Jaipur. He sees the dogs as protectors, guarding his stall. But even he admits, sometimes they chase kids, parents get scared.
And then you hear from someone like Priya Sharma, a mother in Jodhpur whose daughter got bitten. Her view is totally different. I just want my child to play outside safely. It's completely understandable. Both sides are.
And it's not just residents. Animal welfare workers, like Sunita Rao in Udaipur, they emphasize educating the public, making sure people understand why organized feeding and sterilization is better than random acts of kindness that might actually cause problems.
Right, channeling that compassion effectively.
And vets, like Dr. Harjan Singh, they keep warning. If the funding isn't consistent, even the best plan will stumble. It needs that solid backing.
So, pulling this all together, what does this mean for you listening? What are the big takeaways here? Rajasthan's definitely taken a big first step. It's charting a course that could potentially redefine how India handles this massive issue. And with the Supreme Court pushing for a national policy, other states are definitely watching. Kerala, for example, is facing its own huge crisis.
Huge numbers there, 165,000 bites, 17 rabies deaths just in the first half of 2025.
And places like Bengaluru, where dog lovers were really vocal against that initial Supreme Court order, they'll be watching closely too.
You know, these Rajasthan guidelines, they feel like more than just policy. They're a really serious attempt to balance these competing needs. Human fear and safety versus animal rights and welfare. In a country where that bond, that coexistence is so complex and, yeah, often intense. Success is going to hinge on real collaboration, isn't it? Authorities, residents, animal groups, all working together, building that shared vision.
But here's the thought I want to leave you with. This journey, it's really just starting. What's it actually going to take? Beyond the guidelines, beyond the plans. What will it take to genuinely create a future where our streets feel safer for everyone, where the dogs are healthier and treated with compassion, and where communities can actually agree on how to coexist? That's a big question, and definitely something worth thinking about long after this deep dive is over.